Good morning, and we're back for another little episode. This time, this is Tom, of course, and we're still downstairs, except now it's Sunday. It is the 22nd of September, and it's amazing how we go from nice rainy day to a nice sunny day outside here. But I'm actually now starting on the first part of the build for the R2-D2, and what I am doing right now is I am working on the electronics. I made my first major boo-boo. I made the mistake of going ahead and getting all the wires onto the board to begin with, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have gone ahead and waited until I'd actually gone ahead and built more of the sub-assemblies for the model first, so learn from me doing. So what I'm doing right now is I am going ahead and soldering up the lights. Here's the yellow, and I figured I'd give a quick little tutorial on how to do the soldering. First of all, when you're dealing with LEDs, if you notice here, this happens to be a red LED that I'm holding in my hand. You'll notice that you've got two wires off of it, one slightly larger than the other. Let me see if I can go ahead and bring this down more into shape here, more into focus. And I don't know how well that's actually showing up there, but you'll notice that one leg is longer than the other. The longer one is your positive, so you want to make sure that when you're actually soldering, that whatever color you have established as your positive goes to the longer leg. Typically that tends to be the red. I've got three different colors of magnetic wire over here. I've got red, green, and copper, I guess you'd call it. So I'm using the red as my positive, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what all I do. As I said, I've already gone ahead and done a couple, and I've got a couple extra strands here of the red wire, and a couple strands of the yellow, or I should say the green. And I'm going to show you what I do to go ahead and get this set up to actually solder it. I've got my soldering station all powered up. Got it over here. I've got my cleaning pad all wet, so that way I can go ahead and use it. It's presently at 200C. Hopefully you can read that here with the bright light shining on in. It's kind of hard for me to tell what's showing up and what's not on this little small panel. So I'm going to be back in a second. I'm going to go ahead and get things all set up on my helping hands here, and hopefully you can go ahead and see what I'm up to. Be back in a moment, everyone. Okay, we are back. You may notice that right now I've got the red LED in the grips here on the alligator clips for my helping hands. And I gotta admit, these are kind of nice. With my positive leg, or positive wire here, extended out on a right angle from the bulb. And the reason for doing that is to go ahead and help with the wiring when I get it inside the base for the R2-D2. You know, I may need to go ahead and bend these a little bit later on, but who knows. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my magnet wire, and I'm going to go ahead and roughly figure out how much wire it would take to go from one end basically to the other. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to go ahead and burn off the insulation for this particular wire. And I don't necessarily know if you'll be able to see this. You might be able to hear it, but I'm going to put the camera down and go ahead and burn off some insulation here. Hopefully you heard that. That little hand grenade puts out some nice little power there. What I'm going to do now is, you notice, you may not be able to see it that well, but the wire, the exposed wire, is roughly the length of that other wire there for the LED. I'm actually going to take that wire and I'm going to wrap it around this wire here. So I'm going to wrap the two together. I'm not going to wrap the LED, I'm going to wrap the magnet wire, I should say, around the LED piece. And then I'm going to clamp it down in the other end here. and then I'll go ahead and actually solder the two pieces together. So let me go ahead and do that because I need both hands, and since I don't have a tripod, we all have to kind of suffer, I guess. Anyways, back in a second. Okay, I don't know if you can make it out now, but you will notice here that the end of the magnetic wire is hooked into the left-hand side of my helping hands. The right-hand side, hopefully you can see it, is wrapped around the positive post of the LED. Next I need to go ahead and solder this down, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my solder, and I happen to have a fairly large spool of it here, and I've got the tongue-tied. I've got the soldering iron already heated up, and I'm going to go ahead and solder these guys together. So let's see if I can go ahead and put this down and keep everything in frame. I'm not quite sure if that is in frame or not, but we'll try to go ahead and see if this will work. So bring the tip of my iron and just kind of running the bead across. Oops, dropped a little bit of there. And there we go. And rubbing off the end here, keeping the tip clean. Now you might notice I'm using a needle tip that helps to go ahead and keep things flowing for this particular type of work. At least in my opinion it does. Alright. So here we have the wire connected, and as you can see here, it's connected pretty solidly. The thing that I will do next is I will actually go ahead and do the same thing to the negative side with the green wire, and then when I get finished, I will put shrink tubing on either end to cover up the wire. This will then be heated up with my heater over there that's in blue, and that'll help the shrink tube go ahead and shrink around the wiring, and then it'll be a nice solid sealed connection that'll prevent water from getting in, and also keep it from wires from touching each other, which could cause a short. So I'm going to go ahead and finish soldering up the negative on this particular red one, and then I'll go ahead and do the same thing with the other red. And then I'll be back in a moment to go ahead and show you how to go ahead and do the little bit of the shrink tubing. Anyways, back in a moment. Or back in a few minutes, I should say. Okay, and we're back. It's been about 5 minutes. Never claimed I was the quickest at doing soldering, so anyways. Here I've got, because of lack of hands when I'm filming this, gone ahead and set up one of the LEDs in the helping hands with the shrink tube already on it. Now, one of the good things about shrink tubes is that you can get them in so many different colors, and you can buy sets that have, you know, different diameters for different wires and whatnot. So if you want to, you can really go ahead and color coordinate your shrink tube to your wires and whatnot. But that's not necessarily necessary. Anyways, so I'm going to heat up my heating gun here, and it's going to be a little bit noisy. And I'm going to take it, and I'm going to run it basically kind of over the heat tubes. You can see a little bit of the air blowing on it. And you should start, yep, there it goes. Starting to see some of the heat tubes shrink up there a little bit. And you're seeing it take on a little bit of the shape of the solder in there as well. Now this particular one that I've got isn't necessarily the best, but it does the job. And it's done. Turn that off. Be sure to go ahead and put it in its stand. There's some wire mesh that you may be able to see there in the front that gets very, very hot. So you want this thing to go ahead and cool down just properly here. So, but if we take a look here, you can see that the shrink tube has shrunk down around the wire there, and it's all done. So I'll get that back in the frame there for you. So it is now complete, and when I get to the rest of the body completed and I'm ready to go ahead and start fooling around with the dome for R2, I will have the lights all ready to go ahead and be put inside him. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this particular part of the R2-D2 build, and I'll be going ahead and pulling out the model pieces here shortly and getting them laid out here on the board. So I'll be back shortly to go ahead and clean this up, or to clean this up, and then I'll be going ahead and doing some more filming here for everyone. I'll be back. Have fun!